Welcome to another Lawdit podcast. Today I'm joined by Michael Coyle from Lawdit, who I have to say is in most of our podcasts, and I know that you all enjoy listening to him. We've actually got we're attempting to do a video podcast today. Hopefully that will come through. If not, at least you'll all be able to listen to it. But also we are joined by the great Graham Biss. Graham, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Good to see you both.
Well, you too. You don't know why you're here, do you? You just kind of turned up.
I've just turned up, so it's a voyage of discovery.
Well, it was a personal invitation from Michael, and I'm now going to allow Michael to take over and explain why you asked for Graham to come in today.
Well, I've known Graham for many years now. Nearly must be close to 20 now since I moved to the island, and been a very good supporter and colleague and friend of Lawdit. And we've been heavily involved in the county show over the years.
You have?
So I just thought it was with the county show due next month for the couple of days. What dates are they now?
Is it?
Yes.
Honestly, it's next month. I know, time flies. Yeah.
13th and 14th.
13th and 14th. And this is the second year now that we've had 2 days.
It is.
I thought it was a good opportunity to introduce the county show to the island via the podcast, which of course, and of course talk about your role as the sheriff, which I don't genuinely. We talked before. I don't really understand what you do, so it'd be quite interesting to understand what you do, and then just a general chit chat.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. So on that basis, does that make you want to walk out, or are you willing to stay?
Well, I'm just worried that we're going to send everyone to sleep.
No.
As long as they can stay with us.
I tell you what, it was Ali. Doesn't really matter who Ali is, but Ali mentioned to me that when he was a young man, which is about the same age as me, they used to close the schools down apparently for the county show.
They did.
Which I thought was quite interesting because I had no idea. So it really, because I'm from the north, so we didn't really have anything like this. Obviously, it was just smoke and grime and.
I wish I had £1 for everyone who's told me that when they were at school. It was a Thursday.
Yeah.
So on the Thursday of the county show.
One day.
Yeah. Oh no, it was a 3-day show, but it included the Thursday. They gave all the children a day off.
And that's is it apocryphal or is that actually?
No, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Is that like that across the country? Because you're referring to just the Isle of Wight Royal County Show.
Yeah.
Is it like that across the country where they tend to be traditionally before now?
Yeah.
A weekday.
Well, historically, obviously, they were very deeply rooted within the agricultural world. But the agriculture industry has contracted, it's diversified. So instead of just being about farming and land management, all the shows now have got a broader offering.
So that probably leads us quite nicely into explaining for our listeners or viewers if this does actually work. What is the county show? What's its history and what's the core purpose of it?
The show dates back to about 1833. And it was to bring people together, to allow them to exhibit, to compete on all the rural aspects, whether it's livestock, whether it's growing crops, etc. And it's through that period of time, it's obviously evolved. Today, we're extremely proud of our royal status. I'll touch upon that in a second. But I think what it is, it's a celebration of everything which is great about the island, with a focus on the rural sector. But actually, we take our status as the county show really seriously. It's a platform. It's a platform for local businesses and local people to come together. And one of the drivers, one of my drivers, has always been economically injecting into the local economy. And last year we calculated that injection at about £400,000, which is brilliant. So it means our economy, or the businesses within our economy, are benefited by that.
How do you assess that? How can you assess that?
Yeah, it's good question. Certainly the money we spend to put the show on, it's about 110,000 now to put the show on, which is scary when you think we're all a bunch of volunteers and in my case an amateur. Also, we speak to the traders. We ask them to tell us, and which they very kindly do, what have you taken for the weekend? And then we do sort of extrapolate that and come up with a figure.
So that 110 years ago would be considerably less.
Yeah, an awful lot less. And a very recent potted history of the show, I think it was 15 years ago that the show was on a very low ebb. Like many shows, the evolution of the rural sector, shows have been left behind. So the agriculture industry contracted. Some shows just stayed focused on agriculture. Some diversified and lost their way, if you like.
Yeah.
On the island, some really committed people, but a reducing number of people. And they put a call out to say, look, this show's going to stop if we don't get more help. And an American lady called Amy Wilcock, who used to own the George Hotel, basically took it on herself to bring together a group of people to revive the show. And I got involved, and I think we said, look, we'll give it 3 shows. And if we can't revive it, we accept that it's something of the past. It won't continue. And the rest, I guess, is history. So since that time, the first show which I got involved with, they took £236 on a bucket collection on the gate.
What year was that then?
That would have been, because we've had 2 years off through COVID. You're talking 2010, something like that. So, and I've 236 is a figure which has always sat, being a financial person, it's always sat there. Last year we had 12,000 people paying to come to the show, and you can work that figure out. So it's transformed. And the other thing, forgive me, the other thing which is great about the show is we're all volunteers, and it's all about people. And the reason why I think the show has grown, not about 1 or 2 individuals, it's about a really collective effort. And Mark, the work you do on the main ring, and then there's your counterparts in livestock, in equine, in the gardens, in the woodland, in tractors, and I can go on and on. Village Green, and there's plenty of you all coming together, all working hard. No financial return. I often look at them and think, oh, this is bonkers. But there's a sense of achievement.
I think when you build, it builds. And I was going to come on to that actually in a bit. But just from a basic level, when you are working so hard on something, and of course you've done it for years as well. They don't tend to do as much in the main ring aspect of things nowadays. But there is a sense
I've seen him in his outfits. I've seen his country set outfit.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a bit like you used to practice as a Catholic. I got so good at it, I gave up. And I think but it shows a significant pride to the island. It's brought back a significant pride to the island that prior to 2010 probably wasn't there.
But you just get the satisfaction when you turn up and it's all come together because of all of those people. It's fantastic. What we haven't actually touched on is what's your role within the county show now? Obviously, you've just mentioned when you've got involved, you've built it up to a point where.
Well, when Amy came in, she was a very brash American, and she was exactly what was needed at that time. She came in and ripped it apart.
Amy being
Amy Wilcock. She came in and if she's listened to this, hi Amy. She came in and ripped it apart, and it was just what was needed. Then, unfortunately, circumstances took her off to York, and I must have missed the meeting because somehow I ended up being the county show chairman, which I never wanted to be. What appealed to me about the county show was its ability to generate income, which could then be used by the charity, because it's run by a charity, to support young people coming into the land-based industries. So the deal I sort of struck with Amy is, Amy, you run a county show and make money. Can I then please spend it on young people and helping them to develop their skills and their knowledge in the sector? But she reneged on that deal and disappeared, and somehow, and must have been by luck, I ended up being county show chairman. And yes, we've just built on what Amy.
It was probably one of those things where you were sat in a meeting room and you had just had a really long day and you started to drift off, and then someone pulls you to and they say, so do you agree with that, Graham? And you say, yes, sure, sure. Excellent, right.
I don't even think I was there, actually.
Even better, yeah.
But Mark, you'll know this because of your involvement. It becomes intoxicating. Each year we want to continue to improve it. Each year it has to go forward. And each time you think, right, I've done that now, you can see so much more to do. It will never be finished.
Yeah.
And they say enthusiasm has been infectious, isn't it? And so when you have that volunteers, the enthusiasm, the sheer love, the labour of love.
Yeah.
Because your background's farming as well, isn't it?
It
So
is.
cows in particular.
Yeah.
So you've got a interest in that, which probably driven you along to it.
The bit which I love it, and it's a real honour to be able to see these people up close. Is they're all passionate about what they do. You know, the Phil who leads the dog section, he's passionate about dogs, and the guys in the sheep section, that's their focus. Vintage tractors, woodland, and it's great to see people who care and are passionate and are committed. And you asked what my role is. My role is almost the bit which sticks it together. I don't do an awful lot, except from just making sure that the people who are important have got what they need to make the show. And the show is like 20 mini shows. So you've got these 20 areas, all in the shape of the people involved. And all we've done is just put them together.
Yeah. So you say that it's built up over the years, and obviously we're all incredibly proud of how it's sort of generated so many more people to a point where I think you said, was it 12,000 odd visitors that are paying? What's the level of businesses that we've got? Because you said about the local businesses that are involved. I mean, you may have the figures in your head, you may not, but just give us a ballpark with the businesses that are actually saying, actually, we'd like to exhibit there, we'd like to be part of it, etc., etc. What are we looking at?
Well, last year, I think we, across the board, we had just under 300 businesses involved. And that could be taking a stand, exhibiting, competing, etc.
Yeah.
So it's just about under 300. And the girls in the office have got a big whiteboard, which we start the year and we start putting the names down. I came out of the office an hour ago and the whiteboard is full. Across the board, I think we are either at or above last year's figures for people taking part in the show. And we've still got another 3 weeks to go.
Yeah. So the community aspects of things that you're talking about, which is the overriding point there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is already you've got all the ticks there, but you also said you don't know, it's never going to be enough or whatever. We've got 2 days now that you've managed to, or collectively we've managed to, fill. There's businesses that are willing to be there all weekend, people that are willing to actually pay to come in there.
Yeah.
Where to next? And when we've got a weekend, have we got the space to be able to make it even bigger? Improving obviously is a yearly thing. There's always stuff to improve on. Of course.
I think when we had the debate 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, I was against it. Not that my finance would be, but I didn't think it would work. I didn't think 2 days would work, but it was completely wrong.
Yeah.
There was a risk to it. Do you think?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't think you were wrong. I think that the committee was divided.
Yeah.
From a commercial point of view, I think 2 days makes absolute sense. I think traders are comfortable to come for 2 days, even though they might spread their trade over the 2 days. They may not do a lot of extra business, but I think they're comfortable with 2 days. I think from a show point of view, it gives you a certain amount of protection against the weather.
Of course, yeah, you may have one day that...
But you're unlucky in June, July to have 2 complete washouts.
We had that washout. When was that now? 2 years ago, was it?
Oh no, it's more than that.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I still lie awake.
I'll never forget that. That was, I mean,
that was years ago.
You, of course, would be sulling your hair out.
We'll have one of those shows again.
Oh yeah.
And we know the committee get fed up with me saying sooner or later we're going to have a bad weather show.
Yeah,
so you have to be ready for that.
It's weather and volunteers, isn't it? That probably, I presume, create the biggest bit of stress for you, other than the everyday stress you've got to deal with. Because I think there was one year, was post-COVID, but COVID was still quite raw, and it was everywhere still to a degree. But we were all out and about again, and I think I saw you at one point near to the show, and I was like, oh hello, or it was either really close to it, like the Friday before. "You're all right, Graham." And he said, "No, I'm just struggling with volunteers at the moment," and that really can cause such a massive issue if there's so many volunteers that are laid on their backs because they're unwell.
Well,
How can you put the show on?
Yeah, I'm going to go back a stage, if I may, because you asked about the show. That I think we can continue to grow without any doubt. But I think there are two other factors which will counter that. One is exactly what you said is volunteers. It's okay for someone like me to say, right, we're going to go to 3 days, but we're totally reliant upon the goodwill of people. And I think if we went to 3 days, that would push that goodwill. They would probably do it, but I think the enjoyment, the fun would go out of it. So we've got to be very careful that whatever we do is totally with the blessing and the consent of the volunteers. And the other thing is financial risk. We're a charity, so we take a very low risk strategy, and it's not about growth at any stake. It has to be controlled growth. But there's lots more we can do in terms of developing the show itself. It may not be over a longer period, but I think by we went from sort of 7,000 to 8,000 people on one day. It was great because we could say we were the largest one-day event on the island, but we've gone to 12,000 over 2 days. So you immediately can see there's some growth there on each of the 2 days, which we can accommodate without any greater pressure on the team. So I think that's it. But I think as important is we've got to remain fresh and interesting. And when I got involved, I can remember sitting in a meeting. Someone said, "Oh, I don't go to the county show because it's the same thing every year," and that really struck a chord with me. So it's really, really important that yes, the framework doesn't change, but it's got to be fresh and it's got to be new and it's got to have innovation. It's got to have new things. And we've done that again this year. You've done that with the main marine, the colour squadron. We had the household cavalry.
The household cavalry was a little cool, wasn't it? It really, because I'm a little bit sceptical as well with the whole being a city chap. But it wasn't. I mean, for someone who doesn't know about this type of entertainment, it was
It was huge. I mean, how many years has it been since they were last on the island? I've got in my head.
3 years this year. Well, 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Well, don't forget we've had 2 years of COVID. It gets in the way. So it was
keep forgetting 4 years ago.
It was 2018.
No,
it was 2018.
The guards.
Yeah, because they were 18. Colour Squadron 19. 21, 22 we were off. 23, 24.
So that shows that I got memories of play tricks. I thought it was post. I thought it was 2 years ago.
No,
it was before COVID.
No,
and it still stays with me that it was such a and for anyone who doesn't know or hasn't seen what they achieved that day, it was quite staggering, really, wasn't it? It's a wonderful event.
No, I'm not sure I'm allowed to tell the story, but let's talk about the Household Cavalry because it was. And well, actually, let's take two stories about the Household Cavalry. Why did they come to the island? As we asked them, it was as simple as that. I think someone said to me, "Do you know why don't we have the Household Cavalry?" And I said, "Okay, let's ask them." So we just sent them an email saying, "Would you like to come?" He came back and said yes.
You don't volunteer, do they? You have to. You have to pay for them, I presume.
But of course, they were coming to a royal show. We do play the royal status, even though we're really frauds because we're not a big royal show. We're just the baby. We're the baby of the family, but we use the royal status so that they came. Household Cavalry. 1 day show on the Sunday. They arrived on the Saturday afternoon. Absolutely blisteringly hot. We had a few problems getting them across the Solent. We won't cover that. They arrived, the horses were hot, the troopers were hot, and we said they were going to come for a practice on Saturday afternoon. In the end, no, go off to the Island Riding Centre, who were fantastic, put them up the weekend. Absolutely brilliant. All Louis, top notch. So they went off to the Island Riding Centre and then they came back on the Saturday night. Well, we were all ready for the show. We'd had a hard week setting up. Everything was wrong. We had to change the size of the main ring. They didn't like where they positioned. We'd put a marquee, we'd put a pavilion up, we mowed it, we painted everything, we made it
really prepared
special.
it.
And they went, They went away at about 8 o'clock. We worked until about 10:30 to make the changes which they demanded. They were going to be back at 8 o'clock the following morning for their dress rehearsal.
Didn't you stay in a caravan that night?
Yeah.
You did on site?
Because, let's not go there.
Hope she was worth it.
So 8 o'clock came, and you've got to remember, we open it. At that time, we were opening at 9:30. 8 o'clock, no household cavalry. Thinking, this is starting to come beyond fun. They did eventually arrive, and they were going to do this dress rehearsal. To say they looked dishevelled was an understatement. I saw a little bit of the rehearsal. They were falling off their horses. It was a shambles. And I stood there thinking, what have we done? Why have we done all this for this lot? Fast forward to 11 o'clock when they went into the ring. Wow.
It was incredible. I mean, I walked them in. I've got this. We got a photo somewhere. I think in our other office of me stood with my walkie-talkie and needing to say that it was all fine, it was clear, and all of that. And the gentleman, and I forgive me, I can't recall their ranks, but whoever the person was in charge was on this beautiful horse, and they were all obviously in all their finery. And then I just stood there, and then someone took a photo of me looking like I was walking them in. And those goosebump moments, they were just phenomenal, phenomenal.
And the reaction and the pomp and the ceremony and everything. And my biggest regret, if I'm honest with you, I didn't actually see their performance.
I remember you saying
which was my own.
Well, they did two performances,
didn't they? Yeah. But you could just tell that we were 10 deep.
The draw, yeah.
And the word which went around was just incredible. The whole show just had this buzz throughout the day. They were absolutely brilliant.
Of course, absolutely.
Of course, the stories then come out. The reason they were late because they were picking quite a few of the troopers up on the way through. Most of them didn't get back to the Island Riding Centre.
They went out
they were in fever.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
it was their last. It was their last.
So for just for our listeners that are not necessarily from the Isle of Wight, Fever is a nightclub on the Isle of Wight. So they've obviously all decided.
Discotheque.
Yeah, a discotheque. They've obviously all decided to go out and have an enjoyable few drinks.
Don't disco. Wasn't one. No, I suppose they're not one club these days.
Let's not go into too much detail.
Yeah, I was going to say, because we don't know where they went and what they did, so we just leave it at they weren't necessarily at the Island Riding Centre.
And of course, the story, they've all been embellished and they'll carry on being so. But they obviously had and they want to come back because they had a great time on the island.
They were really respectful, actually, I remember.
I think they enjoyed the hospitality which they received.
Have you found that difficult because that quite at the pinnacle really of each year to try and match that? Have you found that difficult, notwithstanding COVID? Once we've come back from COVID, who's on this year, for example?
Well, this man takes all the credit for our soft landing. The year after that, we had all the colour squadron.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
very different, but still very, very good. Still top notch.
They got a big draw in, and people felt that it was forming a bit of a theme. One that maybe we'll go into. I know that when we had a meeting, we didn't want there to be a theme, and it become that, which obviously is why things have been mixed up. But it was a case of that thing that you just said there, which was, that's at a pinnacle. How do you deal with that? Was a lunch that we had. What is the decision? Are we going to try and match it? Well, no, I don't think it can be matched, but why don't we give it a damn good shot to see if we can get something together that will...
But the strategy has changed deliberately.
Yeah.
We will... the colour squadron have always said they'd like to come back again. After a period of time, I think we'll extend another invitation, and hopefully they'll remember us fondly and will agree to come back. So we don't rule out. We've got some ideas of next year's headline, but we spend quite a bit of money to bring them back. Tremendous assistance from White Fibre. We spend the same amount of money on entertainment, but the strategy now is to invest across the whole of the showground. So instead of having a main ring, which has still got fantastic this year, I think the lineup this year is brilliant. Well done. The lineup is great, but we've invested across the whole showground. So we've got the sheep show and the livestock. We've got the scurry in the dogs. We've got things happening in the equine area. The village green has grown and grown year on year. So what we've tried to do is invest across the whole showground, so people can come one or even come for 2 days if they so wish. And what's really pleasing is the things which I hold back isn't it's the same every year. The feedback we now get is it's too much to see in one day.
That's the feedback I've heard as
So
well.
you're getting people coming for both days now, or choosing?
Yeah, we've got a weekend ticket.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I think it's with the island, it takes a while to grow and get established, but that's the message which I'm receiving all last year was, wow, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
We can't see it all in one day. And I think from a commercial point of view, if you can leave people wanting more, that's not a bad place to be. And rather than we've been here for an hour, we now want to go home.
I think it didn't collectively we didn't want it to be the main ring show where there's little things going on around the outside that all points towards the main ring, because in actual fact, to make the show so much more, it was desirable anyway, people enjoyed going. Your idea, or whoever's idea it was, to say, why don't we build on the stuff that's around there and it not be all pointing to the middle now, and in actual fact it be just lots of areas in that regard. And last year that, as you say, worked fantastically well. That's not to say you're not going to have something big in the main ring over here.
And let's big up the Isle of Wight. I went to a national conference of agricultural shows up in Yorkshire last September, October, and it was really interesting that someone presented the paper about entertainment in the show. They came up with this wonderful new idea of actually not investing all their money in entertainment in a single place, but to spread that entertainment across the whole of the show. And I was sat there with Sean, thinking, it's a good idea.
So you copyright on that.
Yeah. And it was like they thought of something new, and so we've been a little bit ahead of the game there.
Yeah, that's really positive.
As we've got to be, and we've got to be ahead of the game.
I mean, it's slightly off base now, but couldn't that be replicated for those other areas of the island which are struggling? That the ethos behind how the county show's gone from 2010 to the success that it is now. How do you renovate Sandown? How do you renovate Shanklin and that areas of the island that are really struggling in terms of what it used to be like? I gather back in the day it was 6 deep on the pavements back in the 70s.
I guess it's all about people, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all about
getting
people.
Good people behind it.
Absolutely, and this is why a lot of the credit has to go back to Amy. She pulled together the right people. If you've got the right people,
Brian as well, people like Brian.
Yeah. If you've got the right people around the right table, talking about the right things, everything's possible. And I'm sorry if that sounds a bit sort of
no,
but that's what I believe.
You can throw billions at something, but it's going to be a complete failure. Well, we've seen that in so many projects. But
the show is just a little tiny, and there are probably better and bigger shows on the island, and we've got the Isle of Wight Festival, which is fantastic, isn't it? Because it puts us on the map. And if you're a festival goer, when you look at the people they've brought to the island in terms of artists, they're top-notch people, aren't they? So we're tiny and small. We're very proud, and I'm hugely proud of the people involved and what they collectively come together to achieve.
Okay, so that brings us neatly on to you, and you're saying about you being proud and the island and everything. What suddenly made you feel, whether it's something that happened years ago that you thought, I'd love to build up to that, but you've taken on a role this year, haven't you? Which is separate too.
He was kicked in the head by a horse.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell us what role is it that you've taken? What does that mean? And then hopefully Michael can ask some questions, because I have to say I have no idea where to start.
You're not talking about the fact that I clean the windows at the office.
No,
it's the sheriff thing. I find fascinating, and we've got a number of listeners from overseas in America, in particular, who love the pageantry and love the tradition. And the sheriff of Nottingham, of course, we know about. But the sheriff of the Isle of Wight. Tell me about that. I really don't know generally.
Okay. Well, you talk about the sheriff of Nottingham. The High Sheriff role is the longest standing civil role in the country.
Wow.
And of course, it came from the time when the sheriff was the tax collector. So the High Sheriff in each of the localities was the person who went out and collected the taxes to pay to the Crown. So that's the origins. I'm absolutely delighted that the HMRC now do that role, not me.
Yeah.
So it's evolved over many years, and now it's a role which is the monarch's lead, if you like, to deal with civil law and order, and the support statutory services, and also the voluntary sector. The highest standing role on the island's Lord Lieutenant. We have an excellent Lord Lieutenant. So she's the King's representative, and the High Sheriff is the next one in line after that.
The representatives of so Hampshire would have its own.
Yeah.
Lancashire would have its own. And up and down the country, each county has their own sheriff.
We used to be part of Hampshire. I am the 51st High Sheriff of the Isle of Wight. So prior to that, it was Hampshire and the Isle of Wight.
Number 50 was a lot back there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, all the first 50, it's gone downhill since then, I'm afraid. But
second half of the century, and you're just you're making a step. So what does the the High Sheriff's role is one thing, but what's the term? So can you do it every year?
No, it's a 1-year appointment.
Right.
There's a nomination panel which meets in secret, but members are drawn from all parts of the community, sit on a nomination panel, and the incumbent High Sheriff chairs that meeting, leads that meeting, and then he or she, in consultation with the Lord Lieutenant, will go out and appoint or approach people to see whether they're prepared to do the role. That at any one time there are always 3 in waiting, so you are approached 4 years in advance.
Confidentially.
I think my successor for next year has been announced, and I think probably the year after, but the person year 3.
I can't say anything at all.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. I'm
sorry.
You're really enjoying
completely gagged.
Okay.
You know. I just like the number 57. That's all I'm saying.
I'm very pleased with you. So when they approach you, which is 4 years in advance, you sort of think, oh, very nice, but that's a long way off. But it comes around so quickly.
Well, we know from just finding out now that the guards was pre-COVID. It just shows how staggering the time goes by. It's just terrifying.
Of course, as you get older, it gets quicker.
Oh.
So what I would like to know, and this is it's a bit personal, but I think our listeners and viewers will be interested to know, what's the attire and is it comfortable? What do you have to wear?
Well, that's okay. The court dress is tight, velvet. The ladies will wear plumes, but I don't. There's a sword, gloves, hat.
I've seen you in the trousers. They're quite sexy, aren't they?
Well, thank you. It's the way I wear them.
It's the way I wear them.
But it's really interesting. I think you both know I'm not a very flashy person. I'm a pretty.
I mean, I don't know why I'm sort of agreeing there. What?
I'm a pretty boring, I think, down to earth individual. So the thought of prancing around in stockings and tights didn't fulfill me with great relish. But it's interesting. Majority of people who invite you to go and see them want you to wear court dress.
Well, I'd be very disappointed if you turned up.
Well, I'm going to put it out there. I'm disappointed that you've not worn it today because I don't think you obviously didn't get the memo. But when we said we wanted to do this podcast, we thought you were going to turn up and we were all going to wear it. I mean,
the horse is outside. You could have gone.
Absolutely.
You could have gone with the pants.
But it's quite interesting that But I went to a formal occasion a couple of weeks ago. And I started in April. It's a 1 year only, 1 year.
Just jumping in, how does that conflict with the county show? Because you used to be the chairman of the county show, or is that your title, the chairman of the county show? But you're the chap who comes in to open the county show. How are you going to do both?
I'm not.
I know the answer to this, but I don't know whether you're allowed to divulge anything. Are you within the podcast?
We had 2 years of COVID when, unfortunately, we couldn't have a county show. So I'm absolutely delighted that one of the high sheriffs during that period who didn't have the opportunity to open the show has very kindly agreed to open it this year. So Caroline Peel will perform the duties of the high sheriff, which means that I can just do whatever I
What you do.
You'll be coming in on your tractor at 8:30, 8:45 in the morning.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So that county show. I'm back to county show for a few days recently.
So it starts in April. It's 1 year.
1 year.
We're already on. We're in the middle of June now. So therefore, how have you found it so far?
It's just the island is such a wonderful place, and it's all about people. And we've just got fabulous people doing incredible things without any real need for recognition or acknowledgement. And I'm receiving all the right invitations to go and see those people doing special things. What an honour! It really is an honour. It sounds a bit glee when I say it, but I absolutely mean it. I've just seen such wonderful things, and it's sort of inspiring, and it's what makes the island special, and I think probably makes the country special, that we've got people just,
huge unsung heroes.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
And don't get any credit for what they do.
And they just keep coming.
I've always said to Michael that in years to come, because this man here, I mean, over the years, some of the incredible stuff, and I don't need to look at him, right, because he'll start getting all like, oh, we're embarrassed. The incredible stuff that he does around the country, that is an unsung hero argument, and I keep saying to him, I'm going to get him a plaque one day. But I think like some sort of Rocky Balboa statue.
On my teeth now.
And I'd echo that. And
yeah, absolutely.
And it's huge congratulations and thanks for what you've done. But there's hundreds of Michaels out there.
Absolutely.
I was talking to, sorry to talk over you, I was talking to I'm a very early bird these days, and it was about 5:45 this morning. I was in town, and it was like a scene from becoming more and more every weekend. Scene from The Birds of Hitchcock, and the amount of seagulls attacking the rubbish, and it was just the rubbish everywhere. And then I came back home, had a shower, back again about 7:45, and there's this chap who just every morning he's there cleaning up the mess that the seagulls and people have left. And I just said, thank you. I genuinely stopped and said, look, if it wasn't for you, I don't know what we'd do around here in the town centre. Oh, no problem, mate, no problem. Every morning he's done it, and for peanuts.
Yeah.
And it's just sheer dedication to the community that he does that.
So
they're the unsung heroes.
Absolutely, and they're throughout our community, all shapes and sizes, all backgrounds, and it's fantastic. And I think the high sheriff role, which my predecessors have always done brilliantly, I think a key part of that is to say thank you.
Yeah.
And if
although people don't want your thanks, they're not looking for your thanks. They absolutely respect it when they get thanks. It makes them feel, oh, at least someone's recognising it. As much as they don't ask for it, they're not seeking anything.
If that's the role of the high sheriff, I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah. Completely.
And
it's opened my eyes definitely to what goes on. In terms of the election, in terms of the actual night itself, is that a role? Do you have an administrative role there?
Because of the history of it, the high sheriff can decide to be the returning officer or not, of which I've agreed. I've asked.
You're going to do that?
I'm quite looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it'd be fascinating.
That's part of our democracy, and obviously politics is everywhere at the moment, and people quite rightly have got opinions for and against. But it's part of our democracy. It's part of how our society is brought
It's so
together.
important.
Yeah.
So that would be very interesting I'd be interested to talk to you, on a
And
personal life.
I've had the privilege. I've got two themes this year. One is the voluntary sector and encouraging more volunteers, because after COVID, some of the voluntary groups have struggled to re-establish. But also youth provision. As a parent of 4 boys, really important that we support and develop our young people. And we've had a couple hustings, which they asked me to chair, and it was a real honour to chair. And what was really nice is there was disagreement, but actually all of our candidates have behaved in a professional, grown-up way, which I
despite the fact that they're younger.
I think the buzzword is respectful, isn't it?
Yeah,
be respectful and listen to people,
And
bring people with you.
yeah,
You know,
and I think when I was asked to chair, you think, well, how is this going to work? And I would say all of our candidates have behaved appropriately. And I feel embarrassed now. I sort of gave them a briefing of saying, look, you're going to be in front of young people. It's really important you set standards. They didn't need me to say that, because they did behave appropriately, which I'm not sure on the national scene we sometimes lose sight of.
definitely. And especially the young people are always slagging off the young people for not being involved in politics, not being interested. And when you see the young ones taking part and being erudite and
we know, the youth have a clarity of thought, don't they? They see it for the way it is.
more so than the oldies often.
When you get our age or my age, there's lots of things cluttering views and visions and lots of issues.
Perhaps just the trousers.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the tights. But the youngsters have a clarity of thought, don't they?
They do. They do.
And they're our future.
So you've got several months left still. Obviously, we've got till next April for you. So what plans have you got in terms of the youth aspect of things and supporting them? And what would you like to achieve before you get to the end of April next year? Just in terms of the youth aspect.
To go forward, with the public sector cuts, our youth service disappeared, which was that centralised provision of youth. But out of those ashes have come some really, really good localised youth providers. They're doing brilliant things in their particular area.
Okay.
So we've started to bring them together, so they're starting to talk to each other with a view to trying to help and just mobilise a little bit more. I'm really keen that we've got a brilliant youth council, so to give them the platform, then to be able to talk to our leaders both locally and nationally. So that's really, really important. And there also, we know there's a lot of benefits of being a volunteer. You get a lot back. You have to invest, but you get a lot back. And it's noticeable that there aren't too many young people being involved with voluntary groups. So I'm really interested to talk to the young people and say, well, what do we need to change to make the voluntary sector more engaging, more interesting for young people to get involved? Because we get a lot back. It's a shame that young people aren't getting those same benefits. And that's not because they're not interested or they're lazy or that's not true.
No, I agree with that.
So,
I know that there's, maybe it's not for this podcast, but I know that there are some concerns about, the youngsters that are trying to get work because they need to live, they've got to eat and all of that. If they aren't getting necessarily paid enough because of there being certain issues around us being able to afford everything over the course of a given month, collectively for a youngster, it's no different to those with a family, then they're obviously forced to just work like dogs and just keep going and keep going. Do they then feel, if I prioritize volunteering, am I then taking that away from potential work because I need to live, I need to save, I need to this? Pressures and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, Mark, and one doesn't fit all. But if people have got time, it'd be great if we had an environment which would encourage and would allow young people to engage with those groups as much as us over 80s. And we're quite lucky at the county show. We've got some youngsters, really good youngsters coming through. It's just, can we create an environment which actually is conducive to more young people having a go? Because they're also, you develop skills and knowledge. Working with volunteers, you've almost got to be much better than if you work. I employ 10 people. They're paid to do a job. That's the relationship. With volunteers, it's all about what people are prepared to give. So it's a different discipline, and I just think there are some. Is there a way of creating an environment where young people could volunteer and receive the benefits of being a volunteer? And that's an interesting. I don't know the answer.
No, but you've now got the next few months to see if you can work something, because the more you meet people, the more you're going to be able to go, okay, well, that's interesting. I'll log that. It might then enable you to, seek support from others to say, I think I found a way of us being able to get there more, more
Duke of
voluntary.
Edinburgh Award, that's a brilliant scheme.
Yeah.
And I think that must be part of this unlocking that conundrum, if you like. And going to the benefit of the voluntary groups, I've seen many, but we're all of the same age.
Right.
And it's really, really important that those youngsters come in at the county show. I'm doing a job. 2 or 3 youngsters come along, a job which would take me all day, they've done in an hour, because they've just got that energy and that vitality, and they apply themselves. So if we could multiply that, and I'm not talking about the Prime Minister's proposal, which everyone's going to do service. I get the idea, but it's voluntary, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's voluntary, and the clue's in the name that it's an individual volunteering their time.
Yeah, and if that individual feels like it could give them an opportunity to put it on the CV, to go talk to a potential employer, like I've been doing it, and if you're lacking confidence, if you're lacking speaking, I've always had issues when I was a young person as to speaking in public, and to get that confidence to be able to do that, I can only assist, but it's not for everybody. But it can be. Sometimes it can't be a negative, really.
No, and also, I love the thought of you with all the experience you've got, and you've done it here, but all the experience you've got, rubbing shoulders with a young team, which doesn't have that experience, but does have energy, does have drive. That combination of experience and know-how with vitality and energy, if we can plug those in together, don't we all benefit?
Absolutely.
Here. No, you're absolutely right there. You are.
And also, the generations have possibly grown a little bit apart. And when I grew up on a dairy farm in Somerset, my grandparents were within 2 miles. Saw them every week, I would say. Many grandparents now are many miles apart. So that natural interaction between the 3 generations of grandparent, mum and dad, children doesn't happen naturally.
Very much
so. So that knowledge, which is with the grandparents, and actually it's quite easy for
hard to be able to pass that down, or harder to be able to pass that down.
So if we could end up with some sort of surrogate relationship between the generations, as a society, and I'm sorry I'm getting a bit heavy now, but as a society we'd be so much better, because we just would understand each other a bit more, as opposed to us overtly seeing youth as a threat because they wear hoodies and they listen to music. I suspect our youngsters, I know if we could remember that is what we were like.
I'm wearing a hoodie at the moment. Thank you.
Well, there you go. Yeah, you're in touch with you.
He's in touch with you. So listen, I think this has been an incredible talk, and we do have to end it there. I'm just going to give you one final opportunity to say something completely random that has got nothing to do with what we've been discussing, but something that springs to mind that you think our listeners might want to be able to hear.
Bristol Rovers are the best football team in the country.
Michael, anything from you?
I prefer Bristol City.
Okay, that's your response. Bristol Rovers.
You've said that.
The county show is what day?
13th and 14th of July.
So everybody who on the island and those off the island, please do come. It is a wonderful experience to see island life and country life and farming life at its best.
If you wish to reach out to us, 02380 is our central line that goes through to our Southampton office, but it links through to the Isle of Wight one as well. Or email info@lawdit.co.uk. Graham, do you want to just give a shout out in terms of if they wish to contact the county show or anything directly?
Most of it's on the website, which is obviously www.iwcountyshow.co.uk.
And we'll have the blurb on the website of where to reach out and kind of show the dates, and we'll put a little blurb on there so everyone can buy tickets in advance if need be as well.
The show is a community event run brilliantly by the team for the island. It's about the island for the island. And what's great is we do no marketing on the mainland. About 20% of the attendance now come to the island because of the show. So that's good because it brings economic activity.
One final note, just in regards to the county show, who are the headline sponsors this year that you may wish to give a shout out to?
Well, there's a Lawdit Solicitors.
Lawdit Solicitors, right? Okay.
Have been with us for a number of years, and of course I would say that our sponsors are really important to us.
Of course,
because without your contribution, your endorsement of what we're doing, it would be much more difficult. So thank you. I must mention the others,
of course.
Elite Spars and White Fibre. It's a huge thanks because it's not possible without your support. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for listening, everyone, or watching if this has actually worked. We'll get there in the end. So thank you very much to both. Have a good day.
Thank you. Well done.